Hey there, University of Waterloo, Canada. Your nemesis is back.
Hello number ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking, and oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, I'm in full assault mode again. About a year ago, I called out the absolute complete utter nonsense proposed and pushed by the University of Waterloo in Canada on this wonderful video that I strongly suggest you to check out, which also pissed off my haters so much that I decided, you know what, I'm gonna make a second one. We are so back. So I'm on the website of the University of Waterloo official website, and I have 4 tabs here. One is about race and ethnicity, one is about inclusive language and written style, one is about gender identity and sexual orientation, and the last one is about indigenous peoples. Now, the problem that I have with these tabs here, these guidelines that are very intricate and detailed, in fact, having subchapters all over the place, we're going to check out, absolutely, is the following. The guidelines that are pushed by this university on these tabs and this online website are absolutely horrid. What you're about to see is a disgusting showcase of racism, derogatory language, mind control, political pandering, virtue signaling, dog whistling, injustice, and in-group and out-group behavior, not to mention a veritable cornucopia, a plethora of anti-white, anti-European sentiment on display. Oh, and don't forget about the section about language control. Alright, so I would like to begin with the section about race and ethnicity, mostly because even though the other sections are even worse than this, there is one thing that we need to discuss, because people gaslight. Oh, people gaslight, particularly my haters. You see, in my original video that I posted a year ago, when I was already calling out the absolute disgusting race and ethnicity terminology subsection, I noted the following. Among other things, we noticed that black people was written with a capital B, whereas white people was written with a lowercase. And the gaslighters told me, oh, that's just a typo. Obviously, they don't mean that white people only should be lowercased, but black people, Asian, in fact, anything else, including Muslim, should be always capital letter. No, it's obviously a typo, and that's just you, and you're using this, okay, all right. Well, let's prove it. So in the race and ethnicity subsection, we read, in our commitment to fostering an equitable environment, it is essential to recognize and respect the identities and experiences of racialized groups. This section of the style guide aims to provide guidance on language and terminology that accurately represents and honors the identities of individuals from various racial and ethnic backgrounds. This is a lie. They are not trying to honor the identities of individuals from various racial and ethnic backgrounds. No, no, no. They are honoring only those individuals who are not white. Because if this was various, it would include everyone on the planet, which would be actual, real equality. This was never about equality. Do remember this. To prove my point, black people section. Black people, you will see, capital letter, refers to individuals who identify with black racial or cultural heritage, often with African, Afro-Caribbean, Afro-Latin American, or African American backgrounds. Goodness gracious, these get longer and longer with each passing session. Always capitalize black. It's a specific instruction. I didn't make it up. I didn't invent it. So the gaslighting can stop. This is what it is, right? Always capitalize black when referring to racial, ethnic, or cultural identity. So even if you're not talking about the race of an individual or the ethnic belonging of an makeup of an individual, even just you're talking about something cultural, black music, yeah, black should nonetheless be capitalized, uppercase, to show respect. And so that's the reason, right? The motive, and recognize it as a distinct cultural and racial identity. Now, if this was about treat all humans as brothers and sisters, we're all members of the same species, we are all equal. If this was the real intent, we should now find the same sort of language and encouragement for all other ethnic subgroups. Am I right? Well, let's see. Latin American, Latine. Although Latine and Latin American are optimally inclusive terms for this group, we should call anyone whose preferences we are aware of by the identity they prefer. If they don't know someone's preferred descriptor, use Latin or Latin American. And as you can see, the L we're not directly instructed to capitalize the L, but it is capitalized even when not in the presence of a full stop or period. So another situation like that. Interestingly enough, they don't have a section on Asian. Oh yeah, they do. Let's see. Asian Canadians is correct for people who come from Asia or descend from people who lived in Asia. When possible, ask people how they identify. South Asian. Anyways, we can see the Central Asia. It's interesting how they do it. Like Asian appear at the beginning of the sentence, but anywhere else it appears, yeah, as you can see here, that it's always uppercase. But for some reasons, they wanted to so you still have to put it uppercase when it's Latino, when it's Asian, or it's black. But only in the case of black did they want to also underline that it's to show respect and recognize it as a distinct cultural and racial identity. Let's look at white. White people is a general term often used to refer to individuals of European descent or those identified as racially white. White is a generic term and should be lowercase. I rest my case, Your Honor. So, all of those gaslighting haters, all of you who hate the truth so much that you will deny, are you going to deny it now? Are you going to deny it, or are you going to come out in the open with your anti-white, anti-European sentiment and say it for the people to see? Mask off. W, I will always write it capital, the same as the B for black and the A for Asian and the L for Latino. I treat all the same. You want to call that far right? Go ahead. I don't care. I don't care anymore. So this was just to show you what we are dealing with. Now, before we move into the, I'm curious with a slave, enslaved person, because as someone told me on my other channel, you shouldn't use the word slavery. What are you doing? It's enslaved people, enslavement. Yeah, you can get lost. I'm never going to do that. Not going to let you control my words in any way, shape, or form. But I'm curious, we will come back to this. But let's have a look at this one. Includes in language and written style. Waterloo works to incorporate inclusive language into every communication and publication. Every communication and publication. It's another thing that one of the haters were saying, oh no, this is just a little guideline, but it's just an optional thing. Every. Promoting inclusion as non-bias in both content, structure, and presentation. This section of the Inclusive Communication Guide Supplement, the University of Waterloo, blah, blah, blah. This guide serves to provide university communicators and community members with guidelines on how to create content that is authentic, inclusive, and supportive of all. Of all, except, it's so obvious if you're straight and white or European descent, whether it be a white American or a white European, not supportive to you, not inclusive to you. You know this. Like, even if you are the most left-wing person on the planet, you know this. You'll have to agree with me that that's what they are doing. If you're anti-white, I hope you unsubscribe. Throughout this guide, we will highlight recommended language. Let's go. Look at this. Principles and conventions to consider when writing or reporting to promote inclusion and non-bias. Non-bias. The lie. The lie. As big as a mountain, as clear as a spring morning. Always consult. All social groups have different ways of naming or referring to themselves. It is important to be mindful and respectful of language when discussing race and identity, or you're not respectful at all with your other guidelines. When in doubt, it's always best to ask individuals how they prefer to be identified. You see, this is so interesting, but because it always comes from the side that never asks and uses labels onto other people constantly. Like, people don't ask me what I identify as, they just decide. Like Alec Gunter, who said, he's not white, he's Italian. Why is he even caring about white people? And I'm like, first you can care about other people. That's the stupidest thing, because you're all about minority and you're not a minority. So already that logic is insane. Also, I do identify as white. Thank you very much. And so that too, you didn't ask. You didn't follow the guidelines that you supposedly agree with, because obviously he's all into, because he's an idiot. So he's obviously on to this kind of stuff. And then politically as well, they call me far right. I identify as a moderate. Shouldn't you, when in doubt, best to ask individuals, how do you prefer to be identified? I prefer to be identified as a moderate. Let's see if they're going to do it. Avoid generalization. identify a person by race, color, national origin, or immigration status only when it is truly pertinent. As an immigrant to the United States of Freedom, you have my permission to call me an immigrant and to call me a legal resident. In fact, feel free to call me a legal alien. I love that term specifically anytime you want, whether it be truly pertinent or not. It is appropriate to report that a woman facing deportation is Polish. Similarly, the victim of hate mail may be referred to as Jewish to provide context. Okay, so if they're victims, great, yeah, and I agree with this. What if it's someone who is instead performing a crime? Because usually they will hide it, if that's the case. Now, if you are reporting facts, then the data should never be hidden and should be freely shared with the public because the public has a right to know. If it's the truth, the public should know it. 3. Avoid the dangers inherent in painting a large group of people with the same brush. Finally, a sentence we agree on. Be specific and avoid generalization. When certain descriptors are relevant, be as specific as possible to avoid inaccurate generalized statement. Let's see the example. Example. Use Dominicans rather than Hispanics, or people of color, racialized people, when you mean black people. Well, hold on a minute. Black people use black people. That's what black people use. So, sorry, sir. I don't care what you think. If black people use it, I use it. I don't see a problem with that. If black people don't have a problem with this, in fact, not only they don't have a problem because they use it themselves, but they don't have a problem with other people using it, then I will use it. I will use it because it's the one that they prefer. It's a similar situation as the one that we were describing on my second channel when we were talking about American Indian versus Native American versus actual tribe name versus even color terminology that was popular in the 19th century, such as red skin. I would use the term that the said Native American would ask me to use as a form of respect. This is about respect, right? No, for them it's about control. For me, it's about respect. But if the black people say, no, I have no problem with black people, I don't care what they say, because what they say as an institution, it's just about control, because you control what people say, you control what people think. Not only that, but if you control the words that people use, what's end up happening, and this is the most crucial aspect of all of this examination that we're doing, even if people don't agree with you, if they are forced to use language the way you perceive it to be more appropriate or politically correct, they will end up spreading your message whether they want it or not. On my dead body. So, returning on the red skin, like you would think, well, no, but if you say red people, that's horrible. Yeah, if you use it as a derogatory term, and normally I wouldn't use it, but believe it or not, it was the name of a tribe. It was the name of a Native American tribe, and they did use it. So, if I were to run, normally I wouldn't use the term. My favorite is Native American, although the expression American Indian is still used in legal contexts, and there are, I know of some Native Americans that prefer to call themselves Indians, and if they do, then I will comply. I will call them Indians too, if that's what they like. But if someone is a direct descendant from that very tribe that call themselves red people, and he wants to use that term, I will use it. And I don't care if they think, oh no, they're gonna frown upon. Who cares what they think? I care about the Native American in this case. Now, I would love to meet a Native American, actually. That would be fascinating, man. I would love to do that. Like, teaching me all about their culture and their customs. That would be fantastic. Avoid assumptions. It should not be taken for granted that a Muslim ceremony needs explanation while a Roman Catholic Mass does not. I'm sorry, but in the context of Europe and the West, this is absolutely... They are denying reality. I haven't got a clue what Muslims do in their ceremonies. Zero. I don't know anything. I know a little more about Buddhists simply because I have a degree. I mean, I lived in Japan, I visited China. Fine. But Muslims, I don't know anything. And in fact, if you were talking about the ceremony in the Shinto sense, in the Buddhist sense, in the Hindu sense, yeah, all of these, of course, the majority of people, it's the truth, how they hide the facts, because they are offended by the truth. They are offended by reality. I don't care if reality offends you. I only care about telling it how it is. Whether it's offensive or not is irrelevant to me. Yes, the majority, I would say 99% of Western people haven't got a clue what happens during a Muslim ceremony. Hence, I will take that for granted. It requires explanation. However, there is in Italy, I shouldn't take for granted that 100% of Italians, whether they be Catholics, whether they be atheists, they still know exactly what happens in the Roman Catholic Mass. Come on now. They are not on equal footing. Likewise, if I were to give a presentation on history of religion in a Muslim context, in a Islamic country, or in Asia, I would explain the Catholic stuff, but I wouldn't explain the Muslim stuff, or I wouldn't explain Buddhist, because yeah, I will take some of it for granted. Then they have a problem with the word exotic. I don't particularly care. Be conscious of context and connotation. Some terms carry connotations within a community that might not be apparent outside of it. The word thug once determined a violent criminal or a menace. Yeah. Is heard by many as a racial slur. It's not a racial slur. It really isn't. Like, what are you on about? That I know of, whatever. Then they don't want us to put the in front of marginalized groups, which means that you can put the, if you want to say, the Europeans, I guess. Use honorifics for racialized people and women who have earned professional title. This is obnoxious. For example, e.g., exempli gratie. Dr. Martin Luther King, oh yeah, the one that said, I don't want my children to be judged by the color of their skin. I want them to be judged by the contents of their character, which the thing you are not doing, because every time you have a problem, you judge people because they're white. So yeah, that Dr. Martin Luther King, I think it's more respectful to his wishes rather than every time specifying doctor just because he's black, but if he was white, I wouldn't, rather than doing that, which goes 100% against the message that he was carrying. Then I would write, even if one time I'm talking about it and I do say MLK, or I say Martin Luther King said this, and I don't say doctor every single time, but my message is congruent with what he believed in, I think that's a form of respect. To tell him, even though he's dead, how we are still fighting for that kind of equality, even though right now the roles are opposite and it's all about anti-white. Use Professor Crenshaw, not Kim Crenshaw, etc. Once again, I really want you to focus on this because it's absolutely abhorrent. They want you to use honorifics only for racialized people, which means black people, Asian people, Hispanic, whatever, anything that is a person of color but not white. So you have to use the honorifics. And women. So this is even sexist. So if it's a male, they're already kind of well, because he's black, so it's fine. But if it was a white woman, then you can still say professor to honor. But if it's a white guy, nah, who cares? Don't do it. That's exactly what they're telling you. Anyone who says otherwise, you're a liar. At that point, they're lying to you. They're lying to you. They have no respect for your intelligence. At least I respect your intelligence. This is exactly what's happening here. This is dystopian. We live... You know, I know that this is going to be hard to hear, to listen, to hear, my dear friends. The world that you and I remember from when we were kids is gone. We now live in a dystopian, racist reality that pretends to be all about tolerance, but in reality pushes a message of hatred, toxicity, and intolerance. I tell it how it is, guys. Gender and sexual orientation. Waterloo recognizes the diverse voices and experiences of two-spirit. What is two-spirit, by the way? I'm missing this one. I don't know what it means. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning. The whole thing. Students, faculty, and staff. We celebrate and acknowledge their significant contributions and vital roles within the campus community and their advocacy for resources and practices that create a more inclusive campus. I'm going to get a little nitpicky with this one, so do excuse my pedantry. I'm going to be pedantic. Yeah, if you tell me I'm bisexual, I'm transgender, but whatever, I don't care. I do not care what you do in your privacy. I don't, and when I say privacy, then of course the haters are going to say, are you telling them to hide and stay in the closet? No, you are telling Christians to stay in the closet. You are the one who tells us that. All I'm saying is, no, you can be openly gay, you can be openly transgender, as long as anything sexual stays in the privacy of your room. And I would apply that to straight people too. If it's sexual, it does not belong to the public eye. But anything else, the simple fact that you're lesbian, I don't care. You could, whatever. Who cares? Freedom at that point. But note this, they celebrate their significant contributions. I'm sorry, how do you know that their contribution are significant only on the basis of this? What if it's a queer individual that does absolutely nothing? They don't study, they don't do anything. How do you know? Do you think that they present a significant contribution simply by the fact that they are this? That's not the right parameter. That's not the right parameter. Let's continue. Look, language is powerful and can often create or perpetuate barriers. That's why they want to control it. This is a confession. Our goal when following style and terminology guidelines is to be respectful and accurate while being community informed and aware of the invisible barriers and oppression that this community faces, which, of course, on some instances is true. I'm not going to deny that because I never deny the truth. Problem is, with this kind of push that is in fact unjust, because it focuses against certain people. I really want to see the one about being indigenous, because of course to them, Europeans are not indigenous to Europe. That's what I mean. If there was no hatred connected to it towards white people, Europeans, straight men, straight women, if there was no hatred towards this, then I wouldn't have any problem with it. But because your message is based on hatred, then I do have a problem with it, and I always will. That, my friends, is a moderate take. Respect and use an individual's self-declared pronouns if they ask politely. If they try to pull a Dylan Mulvaney on me and say anyone who misgenders me should end up in prison, I will misgender. I will use the opposite pronoun to make a stand of freedom. So you cannot use the always with me. Always prioritize the terms that individuals or communities use to describe themselves. Okay, so you agree with me when it comes to Native Americans and black people. It is always best to ask how someone identifies themselves and how they would like to be identified. Ooh, we have the example. I haven't read it yet. I am so curious to see the example. Let's go. In the same way, you might introduce yourself with your name and then ask for someone else's name. Okay? Yeah, you learned that in first year of elementary. You can do so with pronouns. Example. My name is Erica, and I use the pronouns they, them. I don't want to misgender you. Can you let me know what your names and pronouns are? Oh my gosh, this is the most dystopian thing I've ever seen. They are literally telling you how to speak. They are putting words in your mouth. This is what's acceptable. That literally every time I meet someone, why am I gonna ask about, are you bisexual? Do you identify a lesbian, bisexual, transgender? What's your racial? Are we supposed to ask that too? Can you imagine that? I don't say stuff like this is Tom, my gay friend, for instance. No, this is Tom. He's my friend. His sexual orientation is his own thing, and definitely not a label to be placed on the face of someone as a first introduction. Who cares? Who cares? I care about Tom. I don't care about who he likes to I'm sorry for the expression. I don't care about that. That's his own personal privacy. If at one point he wants to open up because we have built rapport and he wants to tell me, as it happened to me in the past, and I'll be like, okay, yeah, well, I mean, it's your freedom, man. Not a problem. I'm straight. You're gay? Who cares? But now I'm supposed to ask the pronouns? I'm not going to ask the pronouns when I meet someone. I don't want to misgender you. You're putting these in my words. So I'm not going to say this sentence. I'm not going to say all of this nonsense. I'll say, hi, my name is Raf. Nice to meet you. I might ask, where are you from? I know that sometimes that's considered racist. Are you trying to say that the person is not from here? Why are you seeing that as a negative thing then? Like, usually in my life, every time I hear an accent, I'm like, where are you from? It's like curiosity, fun to know. And then if I speak, since I'm a multilingual individual, if I speak the language that they did, then I usually like to switch. That's something I like doing. But I'm not gonna ask, I don't want to misgender you, can you let... Never in a million years am I gonna do that. Then they explain to us what gender identity is. Gender fluid, a person who does not identify with a single fixed or as fluid or an... Okay. Pronouns, they, them, singular, she, her, he, him. By normalizing the use of people's chosen pronouns, we help create a culture of awareness and allyship. Oh my gosh, the terminology used is incredible. Transgender is an umbrella term for individual whose gender identity differs from cultural expectation based on the sex they were assigned at birth. Next, indigenous. Let's go. The University of Waterloo acknowledges that much of our work takes place on the traditional territory of the neutral, this and this people. Our main campus is situated on the, Haldimand Tract, Six Nations Right. Next, it is critical to learn and acknowledge that certain terms have been used to belittle, oppress, and erase First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people and their cultures. Utilizing culturally responsive language supports collective efforts towards decolonization and reconciliation. I'm surprised that they haven't used the word white supremacy yet. It's very surprising. In fact, nope. Not in this one, but I'm 100% it's in here. 100% it's in here. The indigenous terminology, they never mentioned black supremacy though. The indigenous terminology guidelines offers guidelines on capitalization. Yeah, I know they are horrible. Your guidelines on capitalization are discriminatory in nature. Their goal is to be respectful and accurate, says the guideline writer who just told us, oh, you shouldn't expect, for instance, in Italy that, or in the West, that Roman Catholic has the same degree of understanding, has more degree of understanding within any population clusters with Muslim ceremonies. How dare you? Oh my gosh. Wait. Avoid possessive pronouns when referring to indigenous people, such as our indigenous community or Canada's indigenous population. Why? If anything, it sounds endearing. An alternative would be the indigenous communities of Waterloo or the indigenous peoples of Canada. Why it's always so ineffective. Like it's always 5 words for 3, for 2. It's always worse. Like when they say you can't say a foreigner, you have to say international people. Which is, I don't want to be called an international person. I want to be called a foreigner. Of course, if someone uses it in a derogatory sense, it's a neutral term, though. It just means that I'm not from here. But if someone uses, oh, these foreigners, then of course it becomes negative. The problem is with the person, though, not the word. But I do not, in any way, shape, or form, want to be called an international person or equity-deserving groups instead of minorities, by the way. In fact, they don't even follow their own guidelines. Equity-deserving groups is what they said is the appropriate way to describe minorities. And they said we shouldn't use minorities. And yet, we have seen the word minority everywhere. So, rules for thee, not for me. It's very equity-deserving groups is another thing. They are forcing you to push the message. Maybe you don't think that these groups deserve equity because you don't think that equity is a good solution for social or economic problems. That could well be a position you hold, depending on the situation. For me, it's a case by case. Yet, if you can't say minority groups and you have to say equity-deserving groups, once again, it's brainwashing and it's you will spread our message whether you like it or not. It is a fact. That's why they're doing that. And likewise, when they say the unhoused instead of homeless, they want you to say unhoused because it pushes the idea that they should be housed. Now, of course, in an ideal world, I wish there were no homeless people ever, and I wish that every person could have the base of having a place to live in and to have a roof over their heads. That is my position, but I'm not going to let you change the words. I'm not going to let you do it. Homeless is a perfectly descriptive term. Slave is a perfectly descriptive term. And in fact, slave is more accurate, since you say it's all about accurate, than enslaved. Because they say that slavery, I mean, I want to see the slavery part, but usually the problem is they say, well, but it's an objectification. That's exactly what happened to slaves historically. They were treated as tools. The Romans called them talking tools. So yes, the word slave describes the horrible experience that they had to endure. Whether it offends you or not is irrelevant. What's relevant is the suffering of these people. And that should be imprinted and explained onto our current generation. Yeah, and as we can see, enslaved person, these terms acknowledge the humanity of those affected by slavery and highlights the violence. No, it doesn't. It does not highlight the violence, evil, and injustice of enslavement. It doesn't. That's exactly what they don't do. Slavery, slave, they, in a way, not even that much, because by then it's just a noun, but it kind of highlights exactly what it does. What you're doing instead is removing anything that you perceive to be offensive from the vocabulary. And to me, that's nonsense. Guys, I've already spent too much and my IQ has been lowered to a disgusting level by having to deal with this. University of Waterloo, you are despicable, and I find you particularly offensive to me. So, hopefully, this nonsense eventually will start being addressed, because it really is extremely reminiscent of the type of academic involvement of universities under totalitarian regimes when they were pushing a message that was not based on the truth, but was based on what was societally engineered by the regimes, by the state. This is Nazism, fascism, communism. This is what this is. It's control of the words and the mouth. If you appreciate my content so far and wish to help ensure my ability to continue to tell it how it is, regardless of any possible backlash, please support this channel on Patreon. Any support helps me and my team of academics keep the channel strong and gives us the means to fight back against the political rewriting of history. Stand with us, form the wall, defend the truth.